G'day my fellow media collectors, I'm Troy and today we are looking at what was Marvel's first attempt at a female-led superhero cartoon, and it was hoping to attract a new young female audience, but who also was hastily created by Marvel to secure the copyright of said character, as Filmation had already created a similar version of this character themselves. And who is this superheroine, you ask? Well, it's the one and only Spider-Woman. Is an animated television series that was produced by DePatie Freleng Enterprises and Marvel Comics Animation, and was broadcast on Saturday mornings on the ABC network from the 22nd of September 1979 through to the 5th of January 1980. Spider-Woman is Marvel's first superheroine to star in her own animated series, and it was also DePatie Freleng's final series before reincorporated as part of Marvel Productions. This DVD has all 16 episodes from season 1, each with a runtime of 21 minutes. It was first released on DVD on the 3rd of August 2009. And it was distributed by Clearvision in the UK only. This cartoon follows the adventures of Jessica Drew, a magazine editor who secretly fights crime as the superhero Spider-Woman. After a childhood spider bite, Jessica's father saves her life with a special serum that grants her spider-like powers, including super strength, agility, wall crawling, and flight. Alongside her friends, her bumbling reporter sidekick Jeff, and her young nephew Billy, Jessica uncovers and thwarts various villain schemes, often battling supernatural threats like mummies, aliens, and ancient sorcerers. Each episode sees Jessica using her powers to protect the world, balancing her double life as a magazine editor and a crime fighter. The scripts for these episodes, while they do have some charm and unique moments, it also reflects the limitations and trends of the late 1970s animated television shows, with simple plots, repetitive storylines, and a campy style that sometimes sacrifices coherence for spectacle. Each episode follows a familiar arc where Jessica discovers a new villainous plot, transforms into Spider-Woman, and resolves the conflict in a straightforward battle. The scripts frequently rely on exposition-heavy dialogue, with the characters stating the absolute bloody obvious. This was common for that era to ensure that young viewers could follow along, but look, it makes the dialogue feel very clunky and interrupts the sort of natural flow of the story. One noticeable feature across the board of these episodes is that Jessica's powers are all over the place, and the show rarely bothers to explain them. I find this inconsistency not only makes it hard to understand what she's actually capable of, but it also highlights what has to be some lazy writing, that's for sure. The show also suffers from some minimal character development, with Jessica Drew's character not receiving much exploration beyond her, shall we say, surface level traits. Her background, her inner conflicts, or personal stakes are rarely explored, leaving her character relatively static. And our supporting characters like Jeff and Billy are simply just one-dimensional, existing mainly to give Jessica someone to rescue or assist, and their constant anti-woman empowerment jokes and put-downs make them feel like cringy, stereotypical sexist characters that sometimes it's hard to watch. Let's say these characters are a product of their time.
You can't say that anymore, it's offensive.
One other aspect of these scripts that I need to mention is their unapologetically over the top leaning into supernatural and sci-fi tropes that were pretty popular back in the late 70s for TV shows. Now, while this creativity kept the series engaging for our younger viewers, it often ventured into some overly campy and bizarre territory at times, creating a distinct, if somewhat inconsistent tone that set this cartoon apart from the others, shall we say. This cartoon is a true time capsule of its time and what was considered acceptable for viewers of that day. Now look, with that being said, I think there's probably there's more bad than good here, and look, I'm only going to give it a 10 out of 30. Now, the show is based on the comic book of the same name, but that's where it ends. In a lot of ways. Sure, she looks like she does in the comic books, as her costume is very comic book accurate, which is good. But everything else that made Spider-Woman, well, Spider-Woman in the comics was toned down or just completely rewritten for this cartoon.
Why the hell would you do that?
The amount of changes are just too numerous to go through, but I'll just give you some quick examples. They've changed her origin story. They've altered her powers and abilities. Her supporting cast is different, with her secret identity and job also different from the comics to the cartoon. The most notable change that fans of the comic book would have noticed when they were watching this is that the comic book series had such a darker, more serious tone, especially in their exploration of Jessica Drew's complex and tragic background. Whereas the cartoon, however, had a light-hearted tone to make it more kid-friendly.
It's for smart kids, not weirdos.
Even by 1970s standards, the animation quality in this is, shall we say, subpar. Characters move stiffly, backgrounds are bland, and there's a lack of dynamic visuals that could have really given the show just a little more life. Like, the fight scenes are all sluggish, and the lack of fluid motion and punchy impact that makes a superhero action cartoon exciting just wasn't there.
Exactly. I mean, where's the excitement?
Though for me, I felt like they did put a bit more effort into our main character, Spider-Woman, but it's kind of at the expense of everything else, with the overall visuals looking cheap and rushed, which kind of distracts from any sort of excitement the show really might aim to deliver. Now, the cast, which I will bring up here. Now, no one looks familiar to me, that is, except for our main star, Joan Van Ark, who, for our older viewers out there, may remember her from the soap opera Knots Landing from back in the 80s and early 90s. Now, her portrayal of our hero, Jessica Drew, aka Spider-Woman, I think she does a good job in bringing a unique mix of charm and conviction to the voice role. Van Ark manages to infuse Spider-Woman with a sense of determined heroism, balancing out her alter ego's warmth with her superhero persona's confidence. However, while Van Ark's performance is commendable, the supporting voice cast is more of a mixed bag, shall we say.
So what are you saying?
Many of these animated shows of this time tend to lean heavily on a small group of voice actors to handle a wide range of secondary roles and villain roles, which sometimes feels repetitive as they end up sounding similar across all the episodes, lacking any sort of distinct traits or personalities. It's worth noting that these limitations were very common in 70s animation, where voice actors were often under pressure to crank these episodes out quickly and without much, shall we say, creative latitude. Now, this one is a very mixed bag. Some good, probably a lot more bad, and you've got to take into consideration it's a product of its time. So I'm only going to give this a 5 out of 20. Okay, let's have a look at the disc and case. Now, I love these clear vision ones. I've got a fair few clear vision ones in my collection, and they just go above and beyond. So there's the front cover, there's the side, all very similar vein to their other ones. There's the back. Now it's a 2-disc set, so if we open her up, you get to see one disc there, and here's the other. And I love different pictures on everything. Everything looks so good. And of course, check this out, we get a booklet. This is what I love. This booklet is great. It's I'll put that there. This booklet comes with pretty much all the clear vision ones, and it just has, as you can see, just the synopsises of the episodes, just a little rundown. There's a poster in the middle of it for you, and then more there. If you're that way inclined, I would never touch it. Too collectible. And then advertisements on the back. So yeah, look, for me, like I said, I wish Clear Vision got the rights to do them all. Get some of those other ones out there, because they, not that they're around anymore, but they did such a great job. Very comic book influenced, and they just look fantastic. They really do. And of course, that's why I'm going to give this, you probably guessed it, a 9 out of 10. So look, there are no special features on the actual disc at all. It's just the 16 episodes, and that is it, which for these Clear Vision and JetX releases is pretty standard fare, and they only really had the license to just put out the episodes, and that is it. But I love the fact that they put in, as I've shown you earlier, these booklets in the case with a rundown of each episode and that little poster in the middle. I think it's just such a great touch, and even though it's not, shall we say, a DVD special feature, I think this is actually worth a couple of points myself for having a book, and just having that little extra special feature that makes it worth buying the physical media. So for that, I'm going to give this a 2 out of 10. Now, as we bring up the Rotten Tomatoes scorecard, as you can see, the critics came in at 0%, while the audience came in at 0%. So there's no score here, as you can see. So, yep, it's over to IMDb to see what they have. Ooh, and they have a score of 5.8 out of 10, which in reading the reviews is very much kind of down the middle. You either love it as a kid and you gush over it with your usual nostalgia, or you've only just watched it now and you kind of ridicule it for its 1970s sensibilities and its low quality animation from the time. Now look, I think both sides have good arguments to give it the score we got, because it ends up being almost down the middle. So look, if we round it out, it comes to a score of 6 out of 10. So look, I have some fond memories of watching this in reruns as a kid in the 80s, and when I started collecting these DVDs over 20-ish years ago, this was actually one of those cartoons I was super keen to get into my collection, but it almost took me 20 years to actually get this proper release.
Yes, it's been 20 years.
But after I did get a copy, all I wanted to do is rewatch it and do a review for this channel. And all I can say now is that I wish I hadn't, because somehow what I remember this being was so much better as a kid than when I watched it again now as an adult, because as an adult you can see all the flaws that when you were a kid, you just didn't notice. Watching it again hasn't really made me dislike the cartoon, but it's kind of taken the shine off a little bit of the nostalgia for me. Now, I've already mentioned this a few times now. Yes, this is a product of its time, but some things, oh geez, they are hard to look past as well. For me, there are two things that really stand out for me. One is definitely the stories. They have some of the most wild, over the top, bizarre, and sometimes insane premises and plots I've ever seen in a kid's cartoon. And the second one for me has to be the overly misogynistic and sexist dialogue towards our hero that is hard to listen to, and look, it made me cringe. I know the premise of it is to actually set up a situation where it backfires on Jeff, who he's usually the one that's spouting all this shit, and have Jessica coming out on top and showing him that a woman can do it just as well as he can. But Christ, sometimes the dialogue can be very heavy-handed on the put downs.
You shouldn't talk about women like that.
Because look, I tell you what, as a kid, you don't notice that stuff. Because I was surprised when I watched it as an adult, and I was like, where did this all come from?
Somehow that's not how I remember it.
Look, I don't want to bang on about it, but it is something I think you really need to know if you're going to show this to some kids of a newer generation that, shall we say, this hasn't aged real well in that regard.
Okay, people don't talk like that anymore. What year do you think this is?
So when you put all that together, it's about as campy, clunky, bizarre, and politically incorrect as you would expect from a 1970s cartoon. And for that, I'm gonna give it a 5 out of 20. For availability, I am gonna give this one a 5 out of 5. It is old and hard to find. It was a very limited run by Clear Vision. It was supposed to come out by JetX, but they never got to, and it only came out at Clear Vision, hence there's not a lot of copies out there. As when I did the research for this video, there was only 3 copies out there for sale as of this video, so very slim pickings. Now for collectability, this one gets a 5 out of 5 as well. This is very much a cult classic. It was Marvel's first superheroine. It is really something for any Spider-Man fan, Marvel fan, or any serious comic book movie collector for sure. And because of its rarity, it is quite collectible and worth a bit of money. So definitely one to have in the collection if you can get it. The average price you are looking for is somewhere between $200 to $300 for DVD. Yep, that's what it's going for at the moment. So make sure you shop around if you're gonna buy it. Let's go to the scorecard and see how this one shapes up. Now for the final score, we get a grand total of 37 out of 100. So look, not a great score, but not totally terrible either. Look, as I said before, and I will say it again and again, this is a product of its time. And if you can put that aside, you will enjoy it. But if you can't, you have been warned.
I'm a big boy. I can handle it.
Hey, so if you like this video, you want to see some more of my reviews, why don't you click that one there? Well, maybe you want to see some of my collection updates. Got you covered too. Click that one there. And of course, don't forget to do the most important thing. Throw me a like and don't forget to hit that subscription button. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you next time.